Now, so you don't, just to clarify with everyone that's watching, you don't build model homes, you don't build spec homes, you don't inventory land. Everything you're doing is scattered lot and using that design build approach. I know you've spent a lot of time refining your design process, and that's a really key component of how you are creating that competitive advantage against other builders in the area. Can you enlighten us a little bit on what that looks like?
Yeah. So when we started implementing a design agreement, so the way our process works is somebody will reach out, ask us a little bit about what it takes to build. We're able to give them some information about the process and what to expect. We can give them some budget ranges. We always use ballparks, to reference what things could cost, give them a range of costs. Um, and then we move to a design agreement, and that design agreement pays us to draw the plans, write the spec, and price the project. And we price every project out with our vendors. We don't we have, especially in this current volatile economy, you have to do that because when you hear things on the news like, oh, wire just went up or pipe went up or lumber went up, you don't know how much, and you don't know how that trickled down to your local supply house until you price it out. So you got to price that stuff. um, and so we set up this design agreement process, and that gives us a couple things, so several advantages. One is it pulls them off the market. So now that they're paying you a few $1,000s or several $1,000s to do this work for them, they're not going to shop that, right? They're off the market. They're now focused on you. They're vested in you.
Yeah.
Um, Another great benefit to doing this is you begin to learn whether or not you're a good fit before the stakes are really high, like
Yeah.
$1 million.
Hmm.
So you can find out, can they understand us? And as you go through the process, you may say, look, everything we say to this person doesn't get through. We sent them an email, and they clearly didn't understand it. We have a conversation, they clearly got, okay, maybe we're not a good fit
Yeah. Red
to
flag
build their
comes
home.
up,
We're
right?
getting some flags here.
Hmm.
So and it could be vice versa. Maybe the client decides that they don't feel good working with you, whatever. But it's a good thing to figure that out before you're tied up in $1 million contract and it has to end with an attorney or some
Yeah.
legal issue. So that's another advantage to having that design contract in place. It just really smooths that out.
Do you typically, so just following your or your process a little bit. So you meet with the client, you will give them some budget numbers, talk a little bit about what your process looks like, maybe reaffirm whatever they're looking for, that you are a good fit, at least as best you can up front. And then do you go right to design agreement, or is there an interim step? What does that look like?
Yeah, so as soon as they have the land, we go to a design agreement.
Okay. Yeah, obviously,
So
yeah. So you're not going to design something without the dirt.
yeah,
Okay. And do you do something on a flat fee or more of like a percentage basis based on budget?
it's worked well for us to base it on square footage,
Oh,
and
okay.
because we can get drafting done based on square footage, and material selection done based on square footage, that's worked out well for us to come up with a figure like that. We do have
Okay.
a design agreement for remodeling that is more of an open-ended arrangement where we take a retainer and we bill for the time. Um, so there's different ways to structure that, and you can tailor that to your specific situation. But yeah, it's really the best way to go about that.
So customer wants 5,000 feet. You then take a percentage of that. That becomes the fee for your design agreement. And then for that, you are offering them the design services in order to give them the information they need in order to pull the trigger on a contract.
Yeah, the main big reason I've listed a couple of reasons why that's important, but one of the biggest things that you got to understand about this process is you're doing a one-off home. You've never built this home before.
Hmm.
You've probably never worked for this client before, although we have some repeat clients that we've done this process with. But most likely, this is a first time you've worked with this person and first time you built this home. So you got to get in their head In their mind, there's this vision of this house. They can see it in their mind, but they don't always know how to articulate it. And
Of course.
until it can be articulated and confirmed on paper, you don't know if you're on the same page or not.
Yeah,
And
right.
so when they spend all that time, you referenced this earlier, but when they're spending that time with an architect, they're saying we like this, we don't like this, and they're giving their life experience and their reasons and their
Hmm.
viewpoints to this other person who's putting it on paper. If he doesn't get it accurately represented on paper, things get lost in that translation when that plan comes to you. And so if you are in charge of that design process, you're hearing everything they're saying. You're getting much better content as the plans are getting created, and you know the story behind every line on that page and why
Yep.
the house is this way, because they've explained all that story to you. And so that is huge. And when you get to the end of the design phase with somebody where you spent 40 to 60 hours drawing the plans, writing the specs, showing them a tile, and they say, "Oh, we don't like that tile because this."
Of a
Well,
Sure. Yep.
yeah, it gives you the story. You understand. So when you deliver them a package, plan, specs, and price, it's very comprehensive. You fully know what's going to make them happy, and they fully feel heard and understood, and they're almost always ready to move forward.
Yeah, it's so true. It just goes back to what you said earlier, is that the design process, I think what I hear and you're saying is that the critical component of the design process is that it allows you to develop that synergy and that relationship and that trust, most importantly, that trust.
Trust.
So if they
Yeah.
trust for the design process, they're going to trust you during the construction and warranty period. Um, I've heard, quick story here, but I remember I had a client once that told me that his he was working with a remodeling client, and he said, I had the remodeling client said, I have the world's most expensive baseball bat. And what do you mean? My client said at the time, he goes, what do you mean by that? And he reaches up behind his desk and he pulls up this rolled up set of plans, and he says, I spent $30,000 with an architect to draw these plans. The plans were twice my budget, and now my kids use it as a baseball bat. These
Yep.
plans. And we've all heard those horror stories, right? When you have that client working directly with an architect, yeah, the architect may be able to put it on paper, but it's so usually blown out of budget that it's a waste of time and energy and money, and you've got to start from scratch anyway. So why not work with a home builder who understands budget as well as design aspects?
That's right.